Good morning, Mr. John Boardman, IHR Australia's Director of Workplace Relations.
Morning, Mark.
John, this morning we're here to talk about recent changes that the Fair Work Commission has in regards to additional powers they've been granted as it relates to workplace bullying. I should point out that we're talking about 3 weeks out from the federal election, and that may change things. But as it stands today, the Fair Work Commission has additional powers that come into effect from 1 January. And as is often the case when changes occur, it's a good time for organisations to revisit what's important, what they need to know, and what are the ramifications of not meeting their minimum responsibilities. So John, what I'm hoping you could explain this morning to our viewers is what are the minimum requirements that an organisation needs to have in place or have met to avoid possible problems as they relate to these new workplace bullying laws or legislation?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Employees have a responsibility to make sure that they have in place appropriate policies in regard to behavioural matters such as bullying and harassment. They also need to make sure that they've done appropriate training of both their staff and their managers, that they have mechanisms in place to identify potential hazards and risk control measures to be able to minimise any risk that might have been foreseen. It also goes to how they respond to a complaint when they get a complaint. So their complaint handling, the manner in which they conduct their investigations, how they treat people during the course of their investigations, what sort of risk mitigation factors they might take, such as moving people so that they're not exposed to additional risk during the course of the investigation, whether they might be sent on, as it were, gardening leave or something like that. A whole range of things that an employer will be expected to do to effectively manage these sorts of issues in the workplace, and they will come under a great deal more scrutiny by the Fair Work Commission as people have an opportunity to go to the Commission, and indeed the Commission will have the power to issue orders so that an employer will be required to comply with what the Commission determines as to be reasonable action.
All right, great advice, thank you, John. So I guess at this point you would urge organisations to revisit how they go about minimising the risk of workplace bullying and really taking stock now before the legislation comes into effect as 1 January 2014.
Absolutely, Mike. To some extent, employers need to be taking all of these steps now anyway. It's just that an employee will be able to raise a matter with Fair Work Australia, which means that the steps that the organisation take will be scrutinised by a third party. So it's an opportunity now to make sure that, as it were, you've got all of your ducks in a row, to use the expression, the house in order, so that moving forward they will be able to defend themselves should there be an external party who becomes involved in reviewing their actions.
Sure.
Once again, nobody likes to be outed by a court or a tribunal as having poorly handled a matter.
And I guess the other important distinction, as of 1 January, the employee has the right to go to the Fair Work Commission without consulting the employer first.
Yes, and look, they can to some extent do that now. I mean, an employee might choose to raise a matter with the Work Health Safety Authority in their particular state as well. But generally speaking, government-funded organisations and authorities don't particularly like to become involved if the internal procedures haven't been utilised in the first instance. Now, they may become well involved if they think that the organisation doesn't have appropriate processes in place, or where there might be some form of conflict of interest where it might be reasonably considered that an internal review of the matter might indicate some bias. So there will be circumstances where the Fair Work Commission will get directly involved. I don't think that will occur routinely. I don't think the Fair Work Commission will be seeking to involve itself in the first instance if people have bypassed robust internal procedures.
So your view is that they potentially be sent back to the employer to try to follow internal process first?
Look, my view is that that's most likely. In terms of how it's going to be implemented, in terms of how the Commission deals with its new powers, a lot of those are not yet clear, and we'll have to wait and see as they unfold. But it doesn't make much sense to think that that a publicly funded organisation should be replacing what is really the responsibility of an organisation to look after its own employees.
All right, watch this space.
Absolutely.
John, thank you so much. A lot to think about there. John Boardman, pleasure.
Thanks, mate.